Hello and welcome to the 80th episode of Growing Up Geek, the weekly podcast for geek entertainment and nostalgia. My name is Brad, and I'm joined by a man who hopefully had a pleasant ID4, my brother Rob.
Sit the down!
What is that?
You don't remember the Slipknot impersonation?
The Muse impersonating Slipknot, from their DVD. I was going to say, people probably get shocked that's your introduction there, but
it's funny because to hear a metal band that's supposedly so heavy and so against the establishment being like, sit down.
Right. It is kind of funny.
This is a classy joint. Sit down. Sit the F down.
You know, that's what you pay to see. Wow, that is random. Yeah. As I mentioned before, I hope you had a pleasant Independence Day.
ID4. Yes. Many fireworks.
Fireworks? Did you eat well?
I did. I eat very well. Actually, pretty healthy, too.
Oh, good.
A lot of vegetarian stuff.
I did not. I sat inches away from a grill and had hot meats delivered to my plate. And the key is, don't eat buns. You can eat a lot more meat that way.
Well done.
But hey, I wanted to ask you, did you see the Totally Rad show this week?
No, I did not.
Okay, Jeff Kanata did a thing on there where he was sort of talking about geocaching. Have you heard about geocaching?
No.
It's a website that's been around for a long time. It's basically a GPS scavenger hunt, and he was showing how there's an iPhone app now that lets you geocache from your iPhone, so you can actually see like where different treasures are hidden that people, well, they call them caches. It might be, you know, as awesome as like a time capsule, or it might be something as simple as just a piece of paper that says, you know, I was here. But I was looking at Amber's cousin's iPhone, and I was telling him about this, and he said, well, why don't we go do one right now? So we did. And we got to our first geocache coordinate, and it was in the middle of these dank woods, and I looked down and saw there was a like shallow like ditch with two shovels laying in it, and I was suddenly like, what have I gotten us into? You know, because each of these is made by an individual person.
Yeah.
And I was like, watch there be a guy like a sniper in a tree that's like, finally someone came for my cache, you know?
That's spelled C-A-S-H?
C-A-C-H-E, like a cache of weapons, you know?
Okay.
Her mother was like, you mean there's no actual cache? And I'm like, no, people don't just hide cache.
Well, if you wanted to, you could.
You could, and actually I talked to a friend who got like a buck in one of them, you know. But I mean, the respectful thing is you normally don't take it. You might trade it for something, but the goal is really in the hunt, and I had a good time doing that. We didn't actually find that first one, but we did score on the next two, and it was fun. So,
dude,
I know Jeff said that there's been a lot of their fans who have been doing it this week, and I obviously tried it as well. So that's really cool if you have an iPhone, geocaching.
Hopefully it comes to Palm Pre.
Yeah.
The App Store right now is in beta. I don't think I mentioned that whenever we reviewed it, but they said sometime this week maybe even they'll be getting new apps.
Yeah, that's really the only thing preventing me from getting a Palm Pre is the App Store on the iPhone is awesome. There's no denying that, and we'll see how Palm competes, you know.
True.
But let's go ahead and get into some geek news here. Every week we love to read the geeky news, and we bring you our favorite stories. Rob, what was your favorite story this week?
Well, sort of in keeping with the theme I've established in this episode, this was some news that came to me that I'm very excited about. I don't know how new it is.
Yeah.
But Muse has announced their new album.
Sweet.
It is called The Resistance.
Very cool. Can I just say, for people who don't know, it is a little bit of a divergence, although Muse definitely deals in I would say, like science fiction sort of themes. I would say it's semi-geeky.
Yeah.
But when I listen to them, it makes other music suck.
Yeah.
That's sort of what happens, because they're just so good. They're a three-piece who just rocks so hard that you're like, well, I can't Counting Crows sound as good with 8 members as Muse does with 3. So anyway, proceed. One of your all-time favorite bands.
One of my all-time favorite bands, sort of a geek link because of their themes and stuff, but yeah. The release date is September 14th.
Awesome.
I want to read you the names of some of these songs, just get your reaction, okay?
Okay.
Undisclosed Desires.
Okay, don't know what's going on there.
United States of Eurasia, Collateral Damage.
Of course.
There's a track on here called MK Ultra.
Ooh, intriguing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I doubt it stands for Mortal Kombat.
Mortal Kombat Ultra
hope.
Edition. And then the last 3 tracks are what raise the biggest eyebrows, because they're all called Exogenesis,
Okay.
And then they're called Symphony Part 1, 2, and 3.
Sweet. Here's the thing. You get to a point with bands sometimes where you just trust them no matter what.
Yeah.
And with Muse, it's just a no-brainer now. It's like the music will be good, probably.
Mm-hmm.
They're like just classically trained, too. You know, I mean...
Literally are, yeah.
And this sounds similar to the sort of absolution type of themes of like end of the world. It's interesting now. I'm curious about post-Obama music because there was a lot of that anti-Bush stuff to the point where it kind of almost got tired, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm curious about, if these will be more positive albums or what. But
Well, this definitely doesn't seem positive. And what's got me excited is that I heard that Muse had literally had an entire other album ready to go.
Yeah.
And then they scrapped that entire idea and
Holy
moved
crap.
on to do this. It definitely looks like they're working more on a concept here, like even more so than Absolution was.
Yeah.
Absolution was kind of tied together by this thin thread of the end of the world and things like
Right.
that, but
so good.
these
too.
actually look like they have a progression.
Yeah, and I mean, I just want to say for people, if you don't like Muse, I apologize because part of the reason we never cover music on this show is that music is such a personal thing, and one person's gold is another man's trash or whatever. But if you haven't ever heard them, it's definitely worth a listen. So
Yeah, good stuff. All right, moving on, Brad. What was your favorite news story of the week?
The Academy of Arts and Sciences, Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, aka the Oscars, are expanding their number of Best Picture nominations to 10. So for all those people who complain whenever the 5 nominees go up and they go, oh, not those 5, we are going to have 10 now to choose from. It's going to definitely put a damper in my social life because Amber and I always try to see all of the Best Picture nominations so we can really root. On Oscar night, we can root for the one we want.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of is a little too optimistic, I think. It's like, you're not going to have 10 movies that are going to be, like, incredible. I mean,
Right.
we release a lot more movies these days than used to be released, but that doesn't mean that they're any better.
Yeah, I've said this before on the show, but I try to record all of the movies I see in a year that I really liked, and then at the end I always try to make a top 10 so I can remember, what to recommend to friends. And even my top 10, sometimes number 10 will be just an okay movie.
Yeah.
Because some years are just more plentiful than others. And, having said that, there's a lot I don't see. So I'm looking forward to this because I think it's showing the Oscars trying to be a little bit more relevant. They definitely have made fun of themselves a little bit in the past couple of years with how out of step they are with some of the movie-going public. And maybe this is... in response to that.
Yeah, it might have been a bit much, I think, to double the number. Maybe if they'd taken it up to 7, that would have been, I think, doable. But
I didn't.
We'll see. Because now it's going to seem cheap. Like, a movie's going to be, like, nominated for Best Picture. You're going to be like, well, yeah.
It'll certainly give a lot more movies a chance to put that in their commercials.
That's true. We'll know if it works depending on whether or not Transformers 2 makes the list.
Right. Oh my God. Have you ever read the Yahoo Movies top 10s?
No.
It's based on popular voting of Yahoo users. I just read top 10 animated films.
Oh boy.
And Bolt was in the top 5. And this was including Spirited Away, Beauty and the Beast. They were on the list. Yeah. So anyway, just the bottom line, they're increasing it to 10 and so we'll have to see. I just want to say real quick, historically they have had more than 5. The 5 is a more of a recent thing, but I think many more movies do need to be included. Fantasy, comedy, musical, whatever. Lump them all together. It's movies, period.
Yeah.
So that was it.
All right, cool.
And so now let us move to our main topic. Main topic, begin!
Boom.
Which this week is going to be a comic book.
Yeah.
Thank God, we're finally back into comics, and it's going to be the Umbrella Academy. And this is a comic that has got a lot of good word of mouth. It is written by Gerard Way, who is the lead singer of My Chemical Romance, for people who know that band. The art is Gabriel Ba, and we both read the first 6-issue storyline, which is called Apocalypse Suite. Yours actually included a figurine.
Yep. Of one of the more prominent characters.
Yeah, you called me and you're like, oh, they only have the one with the figurine. And I know that was giving you a lot of trouble.
Well, I just perceived that it was more expensive to get that than whatever the book came with. But as I looked around, it seemed like that was more or less the package.
Right.
If you're getting the book you get this figurine, and it was only $25. I guess in the end, that's not a bad price to pay for a book.
Yeah, not bad.
So, yeah.
So let's talk about the premise here. Basically, the book begins with a flashback. We are told that 47 children were born spontaneously by women who showed no signs of pregnancy. And this event, I guess, happened all over the world. And a millionaire inventor named Reginald Hargreaves, I love that name, adopted 7 of them. I think they were the only 7 to survive, if I'm not mistaken.
He attempted to find as many as he could, and he only found 7.
Okay, so possible foreshadowing there. But Reginald Hargreaves, who is awesome, by the way, in my opinion, just one quick spoiler there. The guy is the inventor of, like, the televator, and, like, he is specialized in chimp, like, cranial psychology. I mean, they just established he's, like, the ultimate millionaire inventor genius.
His nickname is the Monocle.
Yes.
He wears a monocle.
Yes. And when he is asked by the media why he adopted these 7 children, his only explanation is to save the world. So, and with that, the book fast forwards a little bit to when they're 10 years old, and it shows them fighting against a deadly Eiffel Tower, which is piloted by the zombie robot Gustave Eiffel. So you can see the book is kind of tongue-in-cheek. I mean, it's not a comedy, but it really uses a lot of crazy, dramatic ideas. And when we start in present day in the book, the children have since grown up, they've broken up, and they've left the academy, and there are some villainous events that cause them to regroup. Rob, why don't you talk about some of the characters, since I've been talking for a while, and then give us your opinion of the Umbrella Academy.
Yeah, I mean, there's 7 main characters or members of the group.
Right.
When they start off as children, I thought this was kind of cool. They start off as children, they're only called by their number. And then as they grew up, as they got their own identity, they each sort of got a, like, more or less superhero name, you know?
Right.
So you have number 1, who is Space Boy. More or less kind of the main character. I don't know.
Seems to be, yeah.
He's kind of like this hulkish guy. He's more or less a human head on top of an ape body.
That is correct.
Which is cool.
And I will say, get ready for more of that. Like I said, zombie robot Gustave Eiffel is not the end of the wackiness.
Exactly. Number 2, I believe, is Rumor.
No, number 2 is the Kraken.
Number 2 is the Kraken, a guy with more or less squid arms that burst from his belly.
I feel like that's the one that died. There's one. It should be pointed out. There's one number.
Is that the one? Okay.
Yeah, the Kraken is almost like just like a Snake Plissken type character, like a ruffian. They don't really show what he can do yet. But yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt.
All right, number 3, the Rumor.
Yeah, the Rumor.
Okay, number 3 is the Rumor. Number 4 is the one who died, right?
I think
this is hard to keep track of.
It is hard to get. And that's
either that or Seance.
Yeah, so you have Seance who can talk to the dead.
Seance talks to the dead. He's also has additional psychic powers.
Yeah.
Number 5 is a time traveler. He appears to be a boy, even though he is actually an old man. There's cool reason why that is. But read the book. Number 6. Maybe that's Seance or the dead one, like I said.
Yeah, one of them was the dead one, and then number 7 is Vanya.
Yeah, and a lot of the story kind of revolves around her because she apparently doesn't have any powers.
Right. They show her as a child, kind of being told she can't play with the other children when they're on missions. And that's the thing. They ran missions as kids, which is kind of fun. But most of the book takes place when they're adults, and we're introduced to which names go with which numbers. I have to say, all of that was very confusing for me.
Even just showing now, like, we weren't really sure. Who was the guy? I don't know.
We're not great tour guides.
Exactly. But maybe that's telling about the book. It is confusing, but it's also fun. I really think that Gerard Way did a great job with conceptualizing these characters and this world. Mm-hmm. I was really worried going in that it was going to be sort of like just this emo sort of comic book, sort of like, what's that one at Hot Topic that they sell?
Well, Roman Dirge does a lot of the Lenore and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. More or less kind of like
Zim.
Yeah. I mean, it has some of those themes, like, parental love being withheld and stuff like that.
And some of the outfits and the mascara and things are there.
But beyond that, though, I really think the world he's created, I mean, immediately from the first page is something unique.
Right.
It's this alternate reality where kind of aliens are an accepted thing, you know?
Yeah.
There's a scene where like robots jump out of nowhere, and whereas in most comic books, one would be like, "Oh my gosh, robots run!" Everybody's just kind of like, "Yeah, there's a robot, so what?"
Totally.
You know?
Yeah. It seems like it's everything for the sake of adventure.
Yeah, it's the kind of world that you'd almost want to have an adventure and like be part of. You know,
Right.
Things are so kind of zany, and you know, it almost reminded me of sort of like Psychonauts or worlds like that.
Right. What'd you think of the art? The art is a little bit crude. It's kind of sketchy.
It looks like it could be like cells pulled from a cartoon.
Yeah.
You know, because there isn't that much detail, but it's still very dark. You know, it's worth pointing out this isn't, you know, a kid's comic.
Sure, no, not at all. And like I said before, the amount of fun ideas that he has, it doesn't stop long enough in the first 6 issues to really get you acquainted with the characters. And that was my only knock against it, was I liked everything that I was seeing, but I wasn't really connecting with anyone. And my comic book site of choice that I ordered this from was kind enough to include the first issue of the follow-up storyline, which is called Dallas. So I actually went into my laundry room and I took photographs of each page because I'm like, you have to read this too. And I sent those to you.
Maybe admitting to something a little illegal here, but
yeah, no, I mean, I found, and I want to get your take too because I know you were looking through that. I found that issue, it almost served as a reintroduction to the characters. You got like a more of a detailed look at each one, and it dealt with the repercussions of the last volume. So I was happy to see like kind of taking a breather from all the zombies, robots, and aliens, and just kind of getting to know the characters more.
Yeah, I mean, it almost felt like the first group of comics really had to do a lot of action to pull you in, to kind of establish itself.
Yeah.
And now that it has established itself, it can take a moment and say, okay, let's slow down, tell the story.
Right.
So it's sort of had that sort of Fox stuff where it's like, you jump in, you're in the middle of it, let's go, you know?
Yeah. Having said that, it does start with a fight between a 50-foot Abraham Lincoln and a 50-foot John Wilkes Booth.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's spoiling something, but I am optimistic about reading more of this book. I would recommend that people check out the first trade, but absolutely check out Dallas, which is getting so much good word of mouth. And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed this comic. It's an easy read. That's something else. You know, this isn't an Alan Moore graphic novel.
Right.
There's sometimes at the most 10 panels for every 2 pages, you know.
Right.
Like, it almost is too fast. At some points you have to stop and go, okay, wait, whoa, what just happened? Flip back. Did that? All right, yeah, that is that character. Yeah, they just died, you know? Like,
yeah. Issue to issue, there are a lot of different missions that they go on.
Yeah.
But it's good stuff. And Gerard Way, you know, people might not like My Chemical Romance. Last thing I'd say about that is it's not like the band. It's much different.
Well, yeah, I mean, maybe it is a little the stuff they did with the whole no,
you know what?
The Black Parade.
Yeah, there was a lot of. I pointed out some parts that were very lyrical in the way that they're spoken.
Yeah,
and I actually really like that. And I think he did the art for one of the album covers with the blood-spattered teenagers. But I'm seeing now where a lot of that creativity for their look and concepts comes from now. Mm-hmm. Supposedly, he's not new at this. He says in the back that he's been drawing comics since he was a little kid, so and writing them. So
I mean, here's the thing: is probably what made you and I pick this up was his name being on there. But as I was reading it, I never found myself thinking, well, I should give this guy some leeway. It is Gerard Way. He is a musician, first of all, and not necessarily a comic book writer. It is a solid comic book. I feel like he really is showing off a second fully developed talent that he has, you know? Yeah. I mean, maybe some people will debate that because obviously...
Well, and as I said, music is so personal, even more than comics and movies, and I think, you know, a lot of people are going to be like, not My Chemical Romance, and I'm not their biggest fan either, but you don't have to let that get in your way. The first couple pages of this book were a treat.
A worthwhile read and worth picking up, I'd say so. You get a free figurine, or, you know, more or less free.
That figurine.
I'd say go for it. Get it. It's
Having said that, let us get a little nostalgic. Every week we love to reminisce about growing up geek. And this week, you know, I've been thinking a lot about that animated Disney movie that's coming out, The Princess and the Frog.
Yeah.
And the sort of evolution of our experience with Disney animated films When did you get off the boat in terms of caring about Disney?
I would say after seeing Pocahontas, and The Hunchback of Notre Dame was the first one that I actively didn't bother go seeing. It was a strong run all the way up through The Lion King, you know?
Well, yeah, specifically, which ones? What do you really remember being, some of your favorites?
Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, and The Lion King were kind of this perfect group of movies that just continually got better. Yeah. And then we would always go back, and The Rescuers and The Rescuers Down Under.
Yeah.
Were awesome. I remember when we got our big screen TV, the first movie we put in was The Rescuers Down Under because it had this awesome computer graphics run through a field.
Yeah.
At the beginning, and we were all running in front of our TV, in place, pretending we were flying through all this stuff.
Yeah, it was a 40-inch rear projection television, heavy as heck, and really dim screen compared to today, you know. But Mom and Dad wheeled that sucker in, and we're first thing we're watching is this VHS Rescuers Down Under. And then later in the movie, there's a part where he dives off the cliff. I remember we saw that in the theater. That was the first.
They're riding a golden eagle.
Yeah. Yeah, and you had this very, kind of feeling in your stomach whenever he jumped off that cliff, and it was whoa, and they used some computer graphics. That was the first sequel that Disney ever released in the theater. There's been a buttload of animated. In fact, I don't even know if they've ever released a sequel since then in the theater.
Well, Toy Story 2.
That's correct. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Well, once the CG thing happened, it kind of all changed. But yeah, I mean, everything else is direct-to-video except for Rescuers Down Under.
But it was a worthy sequel. I think, for my money, it was better than the original. And then you mentioned The Great Mouse Detective, which was surprisingly mature for an animated movie with mice in it, because they visit a brothel in the middle.
Oh,
we had to skip that part.
Well, speaking of that stuff, Disney has this reputation. I was just talking to some friends about this the other day.
Yeah.
Disney has this reputation with the hidden, dirty stuff or whatever. And a lot of it is internet rumor, but a lot of it is totally legit. And The Rescuers Down Under has a still frame you can when the John Candy character, the seagull or the albatross.
Yeah.
He dives off the roof and he flies through the city. One of the windows has a naked woman undressing. Well, I suppose she would have undressed if she was naked, but yeah, a frame inserted from some disgruntled animator.
Yeah.
And of course about the Little Mermaid cover.
Yeah. The castle that is made out of phalluses.
Yeah. Well, it's this story about this disgruntled animator who got burned by Disney and then decided, you know what? I'm going to get my revenge on the Little Mermaid cover.
In The Lion King, the word sex is written in the dirt.
Is that real? I don't know. I haven't looked at that.
Yeah, I think it got to a point where it was kind of synchronicity between Dark Side of the Moon and the Wizard of Oz. Yeah. It's just this stuff where, honestly, the Little Mermaid stuff, I still don't think that was intentional.
I don't know, dude. You're working on a cartoon long enough. I got to see those animators behind glass, which is kind of sad, when you think about it, that they know they're being watched, but they're doing all this, and maybe at some point they're just phallus palace, .com.
Screw it,
I really felt bad that they never attempted a Rumpelstiltskin or some of the other really great fairy tale.
Hansel and Gretel.
I actually bought an Aladdin pop-up book when I was 16 or 18 or whatever, and I was yeah, this is not cool. Friends came over and it had the little red tassel that you untie to open it, and I was yeah.
Aladdin is a great movie. You don't have to be a kid to appreciate it. Mostly because Robin Williams, somebody went through and counted how many characters he created while doing that movie, and it was something 120.
I mean, yeah, it was cool to cast him in there, and I still think Beauty and the Beast for my money is the best. I don't get a lot of love for that though. Whenever I tell people, they're always what? But it turns out it was the only animated. I know this doesn't make it great, but it was the only animated film ever to be nominated for Best Picture, and I think it had a lot of appeal with adults.
Then apparently, what was it? Michael Eisner had a heart attack, and after that, everything seemed to just be way preachy and kind of whoa, Pocahontas, I understand.
Yeah. Oh, can you paint with all the colors of the wind?
Yeah, that's sort of like the big abstract whatever, like.
Yeah. Can you hear what was it? Can you hear the werewolf cry or something? There's like a bunch of lines in there.
I think that the reason why that movie failed is because you can watch it in the theater and be all into it and all agreeing with it. Then the moment you walk out, like you're like in the popcorn lobby and you're like, well, I guess that didn't work out.
Yeah, we'll just leave it at that. Well, thank you all for listening. I think we're going to put a cap on the show there. If you would like to email us, you can find us at growing-up-geek.com. I would love to read some emails on the show. How about you?
Yeah, let's do that.
If we can get some quality emails, we will read them on the show. We've definitely had some response, and I appreciate everybody who sent us stuff. And as always, you can follow Rob throughout the week on Twitter at twitter.com/GUGRob. That's going to do it. Once again, thank you for listening. My name is Brad.
Nasa penya bababissimo pa.
Shiki-boom. Yeah, I always like the shiki-boom.
Shikaboom.
And we'll see you next week.